Hey, James, welcome to the WP Minute.
Thanks for having me.
James LePage, CodeWP.ai. A couple of fun things set up for today's live stream. We're going to learn a little bit more about who James is, what he does, what CodeWP is all about. Is AI really taking over the world? And then we're going to go into a demo. Really see if CodeWP is as usable as an environment, not just chatbot or logging into ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, give me some code snippets." This is an environment, a platform. I'm going to let James explain more of it. But before we get into that, James, has any of this recent OpenAI, ChatGPT kerfuffle messed with your business at all? Like, have you stepped back and said, "Oof, there's some weak links here, and it's not technology, it's humans"?
Yeah, it was actually quite interesting to see OpenAI kind of implode like that. We never thought that a company like that would, but after it happened, it made perfect sense because they're a startup in themselves. They've been around for not too long and uh, definitely have growing pains and issues with their staff and things like that. And it's I think something nobody ever considered. So when this happened, luckily our platform, we do use OpenAI technology, but we also use some of our own models and we use some Google models and Anthropic models and kind of string it all together to get the best output for WordPress. But it definitely showed us that there were some weak links. And that's an interesting opening question because I think it plays really nicely into something that we're trying to do at CodeWP in the nature of WordPress. WordPress is an open source platform, and the reason we exist is because of WordPress. So something that we're really trying to do in 2024 is, as an AI company operating in WordPress, create base models and open source them specific to WordPress, specific to PHP generation, things like that. So we can get into that more a little bit later. But to answer your question, yeah, it was really surprising. And luckily, it didn't impact our business negatively. I think it might have impacted us positively, where people were actually looking for alternatives to ChatGPT. And specifically in the WordPress industry, we are the alternative here. And I would say we're the better alternative. So it actually, we saw a nice growth bump during that rocky period of about a week when OpenAI was imploding publicly.
I want to get into later on, and actually, we'll see this in the demo, like what the difference is between, again, just booting up a ChatGPT prompt, vanilla, and then using your platform. A lot of this, and I want to preface with talking about your business, talking about like what you're doing with the business model, whatever you can share with that, what you can share with how you're going to grow it, angel investment, seed investment, angel investments, serious investment. I look at this market and I think back to, I don't know, 20 years ago when people were building like just aggregators on social media. Like they would aggregate data from Facebook, Yelp. This is before any of these social media platforms like had these features and this like platform lock-in developed yet. And you just had startup after startup coming. I think Foursquare might be one that comes to mind for those of you who are really old in the audience. And I think they were like intaking data points from these big platforms like Facebook. The point is, back then, 20 years ago, the internet was young, startup world was young. I mean, money was just going out the door, and a lot of people were just like, "Yeah, man, if you could build it, let's do it." And nobody was really assessing risk so much to like data and platforms like they're probably doing these days. Like new startup comes out and they go, Facebook could do this. I don't know if we want to invest in you. Google could do this. I don't know if I want to invest in you. This AI world is like that times 100 in my head because there is so much opportunity to build cool stuff. But I think there's a lot of people look back and they go, "Oh God, last time we invested in somebody who were building on top of these platforms, they just got destroyed by Facebook, Google, and Apple and all these other players that were just like, hey, we're the platform." Sort of like WordPress in a way. Like you could always, Jetpack has a million things that it does, and they could just roll out another feature that an indie plugin developer could be like, "Oh man, that was my thing, and now you just put it in
Yeah.
Jetpack." That's a long way of getting to like, what are your thoughts on isolating the business, and how are you presenting that when you go out for investors, and what kind of investments are you looking for? Lots of questions there. I'll just give the floor to you.
Yeah. So I'll start off by saying I'll give you a quick history of CodeWP. We got started in November 2022, actually like 2 weeks before ChatGPT came out. And it was a side project at that point. I had studied AI in university, so I kind of have an understanding of how things actually work. I also have been in WordPress for about 8 years and 4 years running an agency. So it was clear that AI could really beneficially impact our industry just by looking at what we were doing at Isotropic, my agency. We were building WordPress sites, specifically WooCommerce sites, and we were trying to customize them. And most of the time, it was using the same base code snippet or same base functionality plugin and then editing it a little bit to make it work for this specific setup for WooCommerce subscriptions or memberships or whatever it might be. So it was really apparent, even with AI, and I say back in a year ago, but it's moved so fast. Even with AI back then, it was very easy to kind of take this base code and modify it to your needs using natural language. So that was the initial idea here. And I just published it to a Facebook community that I ran, called ISO Group. And essentially, it was just a GUI around the OpenAI wrapper with some special prompting going on specific to WordPress. And it worked much better than ChatGPT at the time and any other solution because it was for WordPress and we had the prompts down, we had the information down. And that side project from November 2022 just grew and grew and grew, and more people started using it. And it went from something that I made in a weekend to something that I was now working on every single night to something I was now working on when I probably should have been working on client projects to something I was working on full time. And then in August, we raised a pre seed round from a really awesome investor called Comfund. I think they're really oriented towards the type of business we're trying to build and many businesses in WordPress. It's almost a VC fund, but they're not going to force you to spend all your money and capture a million people and go and go and go. Hence the name Calm. So we raised from them in August, really built out a team, and now we have three full-time developers, myself, marketing, content, a couple other guys working on CodeWP right now. About a year after the initial idea, and about 6 months after the actual raise and formalization of the company, if you will. So that's kind of our history and something that we've noticed even from the beginning, but it's becoming much more apparent as time goes on. Um, if you look at the industry, you're 100% right. Like PDF chat, PDF.ai was a really big product out there. And you uploaded your PDF and you chatted to it. And then ChatGPT added it. And then everybody else added it. And that company still exists, but that company is nowhere where it would be if OpenAI didn't cannibalize that specific feature. So it was something that a lot of people got caught by surprise. And it was something that luckily we didn't really experience. And I don't think we will experience this into the future. So we're an AI company. We do a lot of things similar to OpenAI. We do a lot of things similar to all these big model providers. But what we have that these guys don't is a focus, and we focus on WordPress. OpenAI will never focus on WordPress. They'll focus on general tools, ChatGPT being a general tool. You can use it to learn about WordPress and write WordPress code, but you can also use it to write an entire novel or generate images or whatever that might be. And this goes for all of the big kind of tools that the model providers are now making, Bard, Claude, all of these different chatbots. They're general, so they can do everything, but they can't do everything really well. They can do everything good enough. And we noticed that in our product, because we focus on WordPress, we can be better in multiple metrics compared to ChatGPT. And we can build into our ecosystem because we focus on WordPress. We're not trying to build a tool that builds every single website under the sun and does content and does blogging and does modification and code and whatever it might be. We're building a tool for WordPress creators that helps you build websites using AI. Like that's what our specific focus is. And because we focus on it, like I said, we can beat ChatGPT in the accuracy of our tool. For example, let's say WooCommerce updates to version 9. I know that's on the way. There's going to be a lot of changes there, and ChatGPT isn't going to necessarily understand those changes because it's not being completely retrained because WooCommerce is out. WooCommerce 9 is out. For us, we are completely retraining the fine-tuned model that runs the WooCommerce mode, which I can get into more when we do the demo. But our content is up to date and our content is verified, and we can create more accurate code, and we can also create it quicker and integrate more directly into the WordPress ecosystem. So I think a big question of yours was like, why would somebody invest in this company if AI is eating everything? And the answer is really clear. And I think previously in AI, an investor wouldn't want to hear this, but the answer is we're niche down to WordPress. And the word niche is only meant to say we focus on WordPress because as we all know on the WP Minute, WordPress is huge. It powers almost 50% of the web. It's millions and millions and millions of active websites. So our target market is a massive target market, but because we focus only on one specific market, we're not trying to do everything at once. We're able to build a really good product that is genuinely better and adds more value than the other tools on the market. And we can capture an entire market that way. So compared to OpenAI, they'll never do that. And I think investors are going to really start liking these industry specific tools, like these legal tools, these WordPress tools, these um, whatever it may be, accounting tools, instead of one tool that tries to do everything like Jasper or one of those older, huge VC backed companies that just don't work anymore.
And just to dig a little bit deeper in that, the way one would protect themselves, you specifically, or another AI star, because there's a few others that are out there. In fact, by this, folks have already heard the WP Turbo interview that I did. The way one would protect themselves is to use multiple, I'll call them platforms. You probably have a better word for it, but you'll use multiple platforms like ChatGPT, like OpenAI, like uh, Anthropic, and like, let's say, Google or something like that. You'll protect yourself by having multiple layers. Is that a fair assessment, or do you really hone in on one because it's just really good?
It depends. So the answer there is a bit complex. I think where we as a company protect ourselves is um, the that platform itself, the integrations that we're building with WordPress, and then the data. So the data is probably the biggest part. If you have the right data, you can beat anybody. You can beat OpenAI with a very small data set that's really high quality and specific to a task. And this is what we learned
On their
over
own
the
platform,
months of.
like leveraging their own platform, your model can be smarter than the general model that they have available.
Yes, yes. So if we well, yes and yes and. So if we have a ton of data for
Yeah.
WooCommerce, right? We can go and take an OpenAI model and we can fine tune it and essentially push all of this WooCommerce information and knowledge into this model. So now this model has up-to-date understandings of what a new function does in WooCommerce that didn't exist years ago when all of the training data for the general OpenAI models were collected. And with this fine tuning process, that WooCommerce model is now much, much better than the base GPT-3 or GPT-4 model because we've pushed this information into it. But if you look at it on a larger scale, if we have a ton of really great WordPress data, and what that would look like is maybe really well commented code snippets and explanations of what these code snippets do, or doc blocks with their corresponding functions of WordPress plugins, things like that. If we have data at scale, we can then take all of that data and either train our own model from the ground up, which is not capital efficient. So we're not doing that right now, or take an open source model like Llama 2 or something that we know how it works and is really accessible to everybody, fine tune that, and then get a better, more cost effective. So it's cheaper than GPT-3, as accurate or more than accurate, quicker model that we run on our own infrastructure and can eventually share it with the community and open source our fine-tuned weights for that model. So the data is really where you win as a company. And for us, because we've been operating for a year, because we have almost 50,000 users, we have a ton of data that we can use to make our models the best possible. For sure in the WordPress industry, but maybe even competing with OpenAI and these other bigger models like GPT-5 comes out, our GPT-4 fine-tuned for WordPress might outperform 5. So that is really important. But that's only one aspect of things. The platform and integrations, at least for us, is where we see our massive competitive advantage. So if we have all of these AI models that can outperform ChatGPT and can outperform OpenAI and whatever it may be, we need to provide it to the user in number one, an easy an easy way to use, but also number two, we need to provide it in a way that is specific to our industry and creates tools and reasons for people to leave the chat interface of ChatGPT and come to our interface of code generation and chat and whatever it may be. So we're really focusing on direct WordPress integrations where our AI will connect directly to the WordPress site, create more accurate code because of it, test the code on the site, install the code on the site, things like that. So that's the integration side of things. And we're also just working on building WordPress specific features into our platform, like our modes, like our presets, that again, ChatGPT and OpenAI, they'll never do because they're general. And we can focus on building a mode specific for WooCommerce that creates the best WooCommerce code possible, or creating a preset specific to Elementor that whips up an entire Elementor widget and guides you through the process of doing it. And that's specific to WordPress. Nobody else is ever going to do that, but it's a huge value add if you're some guy who needs to build 100 Elementor websites. And I feel bad for you, but if you need to build 100 Elementor websites and spin up all these custom widgets, that's where we shine. That's where our product really comes into a huge value offering.
I want to expand a little bit more on the competitive side of AI, specifically open source versus closed source. I've with the state of the word just happening, Matt sort of Matt always has like a statement of, I'm sure he enjoys it, that he has a phrase of the year that everybody latches to. A year ago, it was learn AI deeply. He said to continue to learn AI deeply, which was a cop out in my opinion, but whatever. We're still doing it. We're still here. He is very excited about AI for obvious reasons, but I see this tight connection to OpenAI. Jetpack uses OpenAI for its AI features, writing and stuff like that, aiding in writing and content assessment, stuff like that. My worry is that's not really open source. I don't see this adoption of the Hugging. I don't know it too deeply, but the Hugging Face community, right, where it's just there's all of these different models for all different purposes for AI. That it's almost like I would say it's like a WordPress repo for AI stuff. It's the way that I look at that, and I don't see Matt and WordPress leveraging that, which is interesting and kind of scary and against the grain of open source nature. When I interviewed Aaron Edwards from DocSpot AI, we chatted about that a little bit. He said generally it's like the performance of these open source models are just nowhere near the I guess the speed relevancy of OpenAI and these bigger industries. What are your thoughts on the open source side of this AI technology and helping that shape the future of WordPress? Is it, hey man, there's no way this can be open source because of the technology and what it takes to build compute power like this? Or is there an out that we have?
Yeah, right now the answer is there's no way you can use open source, and there are two reasons behind that. The first is Aaron's 100% right in that it's not powerful enough and good enough. I think that the word would be good. It's not good enough, and good means accurate and quick and non-hallucinating and just good. So it's not good enough, and it's not accessible enough. So Hugging Face is if you go on the Hugging Face website and you've never looked at AI before, it's kind of horrifying. Like you don't even know where to start, you don't know what to do, and that's I think just the nature of
It's like looking
open
at
versus
GitHub.
closed.
If you're not a developer, you're looking at GitHub and you're like, what the hell? I don't know what this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and it's the nature of open versus closed source, and I think it's also the nature of an industry that literally really just took hold 2 years ago, I'd say. So, I think that my expectation is that closed models like OpenAI or closed AI, some people call it that, and Anthropic and Google's new Gemini models and things like this, they will always lead the charge because they have these companies with the millions of dollars of resources to run the GPUs and the incredible engineers and researchers behind them to kind of push the industry forwards. But then that's where open source AI comes into play. Once the research is done, luckily these companies publish their research. Once the research is done, you can take the research and make your own models. So you saw that with Facebook Llama 1 and now Llama 2. and now Mistral's mixture of experts models. These are all models that are open source and the weights are available. We know exactly how they work. We can take all of these models and actually run them on our own infrastructure and use them as we want, like anything in open source. These models are getting to be up to closed source quality. So the Mistral model that was released about 2 days ago uh, is up to ChatGPT 3.5's accuracy and speed and quality, and this is just something that has caught up about a year after 3.5 was released. So it's always going to be like a lag between open and closed source. I think that the reason Matt and Jetpack and everybody's really dependent on OpenAI, and we're dependent on OpenAI too. We use them a lot in addition to these other models. But because everybody's so dependent on them, is because the API and the integration there is easy enough. You do need to be a developer, but it's easy enough. The quality is the best by far, bar none, the best without fine tuning. To fine tune a model, even if it's a closed source model, you can fine tune it, but you need a little technical skill and you need an understanding of how the AI actually works under the hood. And that also spills over into the closed source models. If you're going to try to use a closed source model, you can get it to be good, but you need a really deep understanding of what makes this model work, how the fine tuning works, how to host the model, how to train the model, where do I even find GPUs, how do I rent GPUs, like all of these different things that are difficult now but won't be difficult in the future. So I'd close it by saying the open source AI is catching up and it will catch up. And I really expect Matt and Automatic and all these guys to move to closed source as soon as it's possible, or open source as soon as it's possible. We see a lot of companies like Replicate and Together.ai creating platforms that make it easy for non-technical people to use open source models. So all that to say, the open source is catching up to the closed source. Um, I always expect the closed source to kind of lead the charge into AI. I don't think that's necessarily a horrible thing, especially because there are now multiple players. It's not just OpenAI. It's Google, it's Anthropic, it's Cohere, Mistral. All of these companies now are competing, which is great. And there's a huge trickle down in terms of the research coming out that can then be replicated and then open sourced. So Facebook is kind of leading the open source charge, funnily enough, and they're pushing out their Llama models, but we're also seeing a lot of other models being created and up to par with where we were a year ago with the closed stuff. So I hope we get to where we need to be as soon as possible. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, our goal in 2024 is to release several models that are probably built on existing open source based models, probably Llama 2, which we use internally already. Release these fine tuned versions of them open source so anybody can run them, anybody can use them, and anybody can improve them. And if somebody improves them, that's good for us and we can use it in our product and vice versa. So that's kind of my spiel, I'd say, on open versus closed. I really like open source. Obviously, I'm in WordPress, but I think closed is leading the charge, and they probably will for a while. But open source will definitely catch up at some point.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to for the. I mean, listen, I don't. I'm not in AI news as much as I should be and want to be. But when I just like zoom out as an old person in the web, I look at how much open source led the charge to get to where we are today. Linux kernel, Linux operating system, Apache, MySQL, PHP, all of these open standards developed, WordPress. Drupal, I look at open source. I mean, imagine if it were the inverse, where if OpenAI was as big as WordPress is on the web in the grand scheme of things, it'd be a different type of web where everyone was paying for this website to be published versus a lot of folks are using this open source. So it'll be interesting to see. Last question in the curiosity of AI. Back to the competition thing, but this time on the knowledge side. One of the things that I'm always curious of, as I observe the AI space, is, and I'm going to talk in plain, simple terms, because again, I haven't explored this too deeply, but I look at how a model was created, or how ChatGPT learned what it learned. And from the cheap seats, I see it as, well, it scoured the web from all the content and all the knowledge base and all the repos that humans put online. And if more humans keep leveraging the information in that bucket of OpenAI, they're not exploring, being creative, pushing the boundaries, and discovering new things, which they would then turn to and put back online to learn. So I feel like what happens is there's a sort of ceiling to what people end up doing with AI because it's AI. I just want to code a website, want to code a WordPress plugin. I go to ChatGPT and I go to your platform and I build it right there. And then there's like this ceiling where there's no exploration. The human doesn't fail. There's no curiosity. We just wait for this thing to spit it out and say, "Give it to me." Okay, that's it, and it works, and I plug it in versus the world what it was 20 years ago. People were screwing up, messing up, researching, talking to others, figuring this thing out, and then the plugin was born. It wasn't handed to us on a silver ChatGPT platter. That's a scary proposition for me. This is a little tinfoil hat side of things, but I would imagine in your case, like, how do you get the leg up? Like, do you have to kidnap Matthias Ventura and put him in a room and say, give me all the knowledge you have and never publish that online and put it into our model because humans are like the last mile of this system. Everything else just it comes out of a box. Like, how does this stuff continue to get better when humans are just using it? Does that make sense? Makes sense
It
in my
makes
head.
sense, and I think it's a good point. I'll preface my answer with I don't really have an answer, so these are kind of more thoughts, and I think
Yeah.
everybody in this industry is in the same boat where that's something that people have kind of come to realize very recently. We're going to run out of human-made data to
Right.
train these
Yeah.
models.
Yeah.
And once everybody's using these models, is everybody just going to revert to the mean of all of the content on the web and not learn anymore? So I think those are really good points, and these are points that I don't really have answers for. I think we'll just have to hopefully watch and see. I know that there are definitely going to be groups that are advocating for and against and all of these different things, probably already are. So they're very good points there. I think in terms of the research and technology um, behind training models and data and all of this. First, I'll speak from the CodeWP side of things. We're improving our models by creating our own data. So the way we're creating data is using human human developers to solve problems that we see on our platform are not solved. So if you go on our platform and you say, I really want this complex functionality that combines Gravity Forms and WooCommerce and WordPress and Elementor all together and does one crazy thing. Um, if our platform can't handle that out of the box, we're going to have a human developer who knows what they're doing create that exact example. And now we have the prompt of I want what this does, and we have the example that our model gave us in the past that wasn't right, and we have the correct example. So because again, we specialize in WordPress, we're able to do this. If it was at crazy scale and there were many different use cases and all these different things, we couldn't do that. But for us, we're able to basically solve the gaps missing in our own AI, and over time, the models just get better and better and better because of our users' feedback and then our kind of orientation of the model by creating the right answer and then fine tuning that right answer into the model. So for us, we're able to kind of circumvent the issue of missing data. I think at scale, something that a lot of people are talking about is we're going to run out of data. We're going to run out of human created data. A way around that is synthetic data, which is created with um, that's created with AI models. So you're actually using models to create data sets, and then those data sets train back into the model, and it kind of improves and improves and improves. That's one route that a lot of people are going, and I think we'll see a lot more of that. But then that kind of goes to, is this all just going to revert to the mean because LLMs aren't necessarily creative? They're kind of just predicting machines. So that's a really good and interesting question, which I think we'll just have to wait and see. And another thing is there's definitely research out there, and we saw it with some leaks from OpenAI, their Q star method, which nobody actually knows what it does, but there's a lot of theories that this may unlock like actual creativity in AI models. So I think in our current landscape of just LLMs, here's how they work. We're going to use reinforcement learning by humans. All of these different things that have been researched and studied over the past couple of years, there's going to be research that kind of unlocks the next step. And I think OpenAI probably already has this research completed or in progress or is doing something. And at that point, the models then become creative and then they can create actual novel solutions to things. And that kind of solves the problem of, oh no, we've run out of human data, we've run out of creative information on the internet, because now the models can leverage that true understanding to go and create actual new things. So that's what we're seeing with, I think, the cutting edge research. That's what everybody's pushing towards because the issue you explained is a big issue in the industry. That's the blocker to the next level of everything. So Google is definitely studying this. OpenAI is definitely studying this. I know that from the leaks. And we'll just have to see. But in WordPress land, we're able to kind of use the confines that our models in our industry give us and make it better for everybody because we focus on WordPress. So that's that.
At best, it's going to be a great script for a movie.
Yes,
Right?
I would say. I
I,
would say.
up on the screen, I have CodeWP.ai. We're going to get into the second half of our discussion today, starting to look at the platform and diving a little bit deeper. I'll share my screen, and then you'll share your screen to do an actual demo. Talk to me about all AI modes and presets. What are the difference? What's the deal with AI modes and presets at CodeWP?
Yeah. So modes were something that I added to the MVP version of the platform when it was still a side project a long time ago. And they initially started out as kind of just orientation towards specific WordPress plugins. And as you scroll, you see the icons of all these popular plugins. Now, what a mode is when you're creating code on our platform, you can choose a plugin specific mode, and that will draw on a custom model, custom data set, collection of a couple different things to give you the most up to date and accurate code for that WordPress plugin. And this is still improving, and we're getting better every single release. But the mode orients our outputs to that plugin to be the best it possibly can be for that plugin. So I think that's a really big differentiator in itself compared to any other platform in WordPress and ChatGPT, because our goal here is to give you 100% accurate, 100% up to date code specific to that plugin. And a lot of times, the smaller plugins and even some of the bigger plugins aren't included in the core data set for OpenAI when they come to train things. And that results in hallucinations. Maybe if we were trying to create something for ACF, it's going to give you a code that looks good but isn't actually good, or code that uses some function that was depreciated in version 5 and now there's a new way to do it in version 6. So that's kind of our goal with modes, to create the most accurate outputs for chat and code for WordPress specific plugins, because that's how people really create code snippets. You're creating a code snippet for ACF, you're creating one for WooCommerce. So you use the WooCommerce mode to make the code snippet or make the functionality plugin, and it's going to be more accurate than everything else. So those are
So,
modes.
from a product perspective, is I see free modes is WordPress, and is that Contact Form 7, that icon?
Contact Form 7. There are a couple more. That's just the listing.
Sure. So theoretically, one would come, hey, I could try this platform out for free at CodeWP.ai. I can ask it to write me something for WordPress core, but then, hey, if you want the Gravity Form, Elementor, Gutenberg, that's when you'd get a paid account and you get access to these other modes. Fair assessment?
Yeah. Yep.
And then presets?
So presets are related to the modes. And what they do is when you choose, let's use the Elementor example. When you choose the Elementor mode, that mode then goes and gives you access to specific presets. And these presets are specific to the mode, and they're specific to the product as well. So for Elementor, I think if you click into the Elementor mode, it should tell you what presets are there. And this is Elementor's in testing right now. So I don't believe it's available for free or on the platform. But the
Okay.
Elementor mode gives you access to the dynamic tag, the widgets, um, various different things specific to Elementor with its own methods and classes and functionalities and code to go and implement this. So when you create an Elementor widget, you can use the preset and it will walk you through, okay, let's name it. Let's figure out where it goes. Let's figure out what it does. And it will output that specific Elementor code for you. And you can use the Elementor mode yourself and kind of go at it freeform and say, hey, for this mode, I want to, or for this widget, I want to do this and this and this and this. But the preset gives you that preset flow that you know you're going to go from zero to widget. And I think that really helps people who aren't necessarily super familiar with development as a whole, or the way Elementor does things compared to Bricks, or compared to maybe a Gutenberg block or something like that. So presets, I really like them because I think they make things a lot more accessible to everybody. They're not available for every mode. We can probably do a demo of one for WooCommerce, or we could do one for WooCommerce, but probably WordPress. All of the WordPress presets are free. We have one for short codes. We have one for dashboard widgets, things like that. But I think the combination of modes and presets really, number one, orient our product to WordPress, but number two, really integrate into the workflow that people are actually using. If I'm going to go and create a widget, why not have the AI walk me through creating this widget so I know I'm going to have a good output in the future? So I think AI modes and presets, these are the things that we've discovered in the beginning of the platform work really well for people, and these are the things that we're going to keep pushing our resources and time into to make really good, and eventually just output entire plugins, output entire Gutenberg blocks, all these different things, with very limited effort.
Cool. You can start for free and start an account for free, 100 free actions, one project included, free modes only. And then pricing is pretty darn cheap if you're trying to develop complex websites or WordPress websites. Seems pretty affordable to me. 18 a month billed annually for the pro, 48 a month for an agency. We're going to start prepping to show off the platform. When we did our pre-interview, you like to call it a platform, right? Or an environment. What was the term that you used?
I use the term platform, and
Platform.
it is a platform in its current form. The two core features right now are code and chat. But the goal here, and I think this is actually a good thing to talk about, the goal with the platform is to build a suite of tools that seamlessly integrate with building websites. So we want to do everything but content creation for WordPress. And what that looks like is one platform, multiple tools seamlessly bundled together using conversational AI for you to be able to create code and test the code and install the code on the site, for you to be able to learn about WordPress through the chat using the mode. So what's the update in Bricks Builder 3.9 or 2.9 or whatever the version is? What's the update here? What's the change log? What changed compared to the previous things? That's the chat. In the future, we're going to be doing troubleshooting and security. So troubleshooting, I'm really excited about, and this is probably going to be launched in January or February. That connects directly to your site. And I know for me, like, I've gotten the white screen of death multiple times and had no idea what to do. And what's going to happen when it's connected to your site is CodeWP is going to solve it for you using AI, looking at your debug logs, looking at your active plugins, and say, hey, this line of code is not right. It's missing a parenthesis, or this function doesn't exist, or whatever it may be. Disable this plugin, remove this code, enable the plugin, you're good to go. So troubleshooting, I think, is going to be a really cool feature. And security, AI can do security already better than every legacy solution out there. So that's kind of the final big thing that we want to include in the platform. And once we have all these core 4 features, that leads to a tool that just really offers value to everybody and makes everybody's lives easier with WordPress or with AI, but doesn't replace anybody. It just makes the builders' lives easier.
AI bot versus AI bot. One's defending the WordPress website, the other one's trying to break into it. Jesus, we are making all kinds of movie sequels today. I'm going to put your actually your screen's already up, so I'll just load it up on the screen here. Yeah, I mean, show us a demo of either core WordPress or WooCommerce, and let me just preface it. When I don't know, when you're scrolling through the Twitter feed and everyone, hey, ChatGPT is allowing me to make plugins. I made this whole suite of plugins in a weekend. So I was like, let me do what everyone else is telling me to do. And I log in to my ChatGPT account and I'm like, write me a plugin to do whatever it was I was testing, and I'm like, I still can't do this. Like, this is not for me. Like, can I just stick this in my functions PHP file, or do I have to start with a base plugin? And I started thinking about doing all that and then connecting to a site. And like, you know what? Let somebody else play with this. I'm too old to mess with it from just a vanilla prompt. I assume CodeWP is going to set me up more fundamentally. Like if I wanted to create a plugin, I could do that. If I wanted just a snippet to throw into functions PHP, I could do that. I
Yeah.
assume the platform allows me to do that. So walk us through for the layman out there.
Yeah, definitely. Let me move this to my real screen. Okay, so I'll preface this by saying this is version 2.2 of CodeWP. We launched in October. We're doing this in December. So there's been a lot of progress. There's going to be a lot more progress. So what you see here might change by the time that you end up on the site. Um, but with that said, the core features aren't going to change. So this is the main dashboard. As you mentioned, it's really oriented towards WordPress, and I'll show you that in the core demo, and I want to show you the coding and chat mode and how they both connect with each other. So we'll start off by just running through the core features of the platform. As you can see, snippets are kind of the forefront thing here. It's really oriented to help you create a snippet very quickly. That's what we started with the MVP version of the product. It was really just snippets. There was no support for including other files, no multi-file support at all. And that was the core thing we wanted to fix with this new version of the platform. So we can support multiple files. Like you said, we can make the snippet and just throw it in the functions PHP, but we can also make a full plugin and install it on a WordPress site. So multiple things we can do there. I'm going to get started by just going to create new. And this allows us to load into either the chat or code mode. You can see that I actually use my own platform a lot because I do still develop on WordPress. So there's a lot of different things, easy digital downloads, cancellation survey, things like that. In this screen, you can use any of the WordPress modes on the platform. You may notice a discrepancy on the modes page and this page. There are many modes in beta testing, which you have to opt into to use. And that's because we released these modes in a tiered format of alpha, general beta, public beta, and then general availability to make sure that they actually work well for you. You can see there are a couple free modes. There are a lot of pro modes, and the reason the modes are pro is because they take us a very long time to create and maintain and modify and improve. And they also offer genuine value to professionals. So it's in the pro plan because it's a pro feature. I'll just get started with the WordPress mode, which is already selected, and I'll just jump into a new snippet. This is the primary interface of CodeWP when it comes to creating code. And you'll see that it's conversational, but it's also a bit different than you would have in ChatGPT or anything else. This is a code editor. This is where code can be written, and this is how we can interact with that code. So I'll get started, and I think I'll show you a preset um, off the bat. So we have WordPress, we have all of our modes. I'm in the WordPress mode. If I go somewhere else, I think Search WP probably doesn't have presets. They go away, but WordPress has presets. You can see all these are free, very basic presets, but a great way to show you how the thing works. I'm going to just create a dashboard widget. And I think I'm going to make like a very simple dashboard widget to display count of users by role in table. And you'll see this is a very basic example, obviously, but it's going to ask me, what is the purpose of the widget? Who should view the widget? Anyone on the admin page? Any who can view the widget? And it's just going to walk me through kind of the preset questions that are necessary for the AI to figure out what to do when it comes to coding the thing. And then it's going to go and use its knowledge and understanding that we've provided it with the code and create the actual widget itself. So here you can see we've finished our kind of information gathering step for the preset. And it's just going to write the code as if I was like live streaming with a real developer. It's going to write it into this code editor right here. And I think this is one of the coolest things This didn't exist with the old version of the platform. This is one of the coolest things, in my opinion, where you can watch our AI write custom AI code specific for WordPress, specific for whatever mode you're using, directly into this editor right here. And I can say, oh, no, I don't want the table to be like that. I can cancel it. But it'll write all this into the editor, and then it'll tell me what it does. Here's what I wrote. First hooks into WP dashboard setup. In a widget display function, it grabs all these roles, blah, blah, blah. It tells me what it does. That's the core feature there of creating a snippet. And I think it's really great when it comes to trying to build code for WordPress. I can now copy and paste this into a code snippets plugin. I can download it as a PHP file. I can favorite it, share it with other people. Um, it's just, I think that demo right there is my favorite demo because it shows the power of the presets, which are getting better every single day. The goal is to have it create Gutenberg blocks with 100% accuracy in a month. It shows us the actual usage of the platform by jumping through all these conversational questions, watching the code get essentially written onto the page, and then understanding what it does here. And I'll also show you a couple other things. I can say, uh, let's use WP. Let's use WP user. So now all of our code is written. I can conversationally interact with the platform, and I actually have this toggled on. This is auto classification is off, so it's gonna ask me what it wants to do. If auto classification is on, it's gonna select the edit mode immediately for me. But now I can conversationally interact with the code on this page, and I can interact with the code that was just generated. I can also paste in code from like Stack Overflow and things like that and conversationally edit it. So let's use the WP query instead of the code. I'm going to say edit this. And what it's going to do is it's going to find where it needs to change or what code it needs to change, delete the code that needs to be deleted, and then go and rewrite the code to actually work. So now it's going to use a WP user query when previously it hit our database directly using WPDB. And this is, I think, another great example of why this platform specific for WordPress is awesome. I don't need to know exactly how the WP user query works. I don't need to go on the codex or the functions reference. All I need to do is conversationally say, I see what this code is. I don't really like it. I kind of want to edit it. Let's do that. So it switched it. And I can also show you the explain of tell me how what WP user query works. And I'll turn on auto classification to show you that kind of seamless method. I'm going to submit this. It's going to figure out, hey, this guy wants to understand more information about the code, and it's going to tell me, here's how it works. Here are a couple examples, um, so on and so forth. So that's, I think, the core demo here of um, the code edit mode. I can dive into a bit more. There's definitely a bit more features. I don't know if we want to with that or not. I also want to show you the chat mode, so I can definitely hop back into code mode, but I'm just going to jump into chat mode really quickly. This is something we added with the new platform as well, and you can see the chats are kind of persistent across editing and chatting. And the beauty of this is I can go into my chat mode and I can conversationally just continue interacting with my code. So let's assume I created my code and I've done all of this. Now I just want to chat. Now I just want to learn. I don't want to continue editing my new file. I can jump into the chat mode and I can type in, tell me how WP user query works. And it will give me this answer in this conversational format. But the thing I want to show you is it's really connected to the editing. It's really connected to the code itself. And what I can do here is I can have this inline code, which is meant to be an example of how the WP user query works. And I can go and make it into a snippet, which sends me back into the code mode with a code snippet already created and it's already named, all of that fun stuff. And now I can go back and I can go and do my editing. I can say, hey, it looks like this is only doing subscribers. How about anybody who can manage WooCommerce options? And it will probably put in user can manage WooCommerce options or whatever that might be. So it's really interconnected between the editing and creation of code and the chatting and learning with WordPress and jumping back and forth between different things. You can easily export these things again, download the snippet, install it as a single file plugin. If there are plugin headers, we have specific functions to turn on plugin mode. It automatically adds plugin headers to generated files. You can add doc block comments, inline comments, object oriented programming mode, and export it or copy and paste it into a code snippet plugin and just get it running from the ground up. So that's really, I think, the core features of this CodeWP platform. The one final thing I do want to show you is the support for multiple files. And this is still a work in progress. It definitely works. It's going to be working a lot better in about a week, I'd say. We're doing a huge refactor on the back end of the platform after we've done a couple of kind of novel discoveries in terms of making code, editing code, providing code to our models properly. But we do support multiple files, and hopefully, I'll be able to show you how that works here. I'm going to have auto file detection on. So if I'm trying to include files automatically during generations, it will do that for me. And I'm just going to say, make me a form plugin that gives contact with shortcode. That's not clear, but we'll see if CodeWP can figure it out. Fields of name, email, and message. I already submitted that. I probably shouldn't have. I want to continue that. Fields of name, email, and message. I also want to submit, on submit, send email, include JS for Ajax submission, and styles as CSS. Okay, so this is a prompt. I'm hopefully going to be able to show you the multi-file support. This is a prompt that's going to hopefully give me a form plugin that I can add to my front end of the website with a short code. It has the fields of name, email, and message. On the submission, it's going to send an email as contact form 7 or one of those things do. But I also, for this submission, I want it to submit with Ajax. If you're not familiar with Ajax, it pushes data to our backend without reloading the page. That requires JavaScript to do. And I also want to style it with CSS. So this is a request that if I was to develop something like this by hand, I would create 3 files. I would create the plugin file, and then I would include the CSS and JavaScript. The plugin file, the form.php would have plugin headers, and I would create it, I'd zip it up, and I'd install it on my website. So that's what we set out to do here with CodeWP. When you submit a request that requires multiple files, it's going to create the form. And I think that error message, it actually did make our form and then go and continue onwards. So it's going to go create our form. And then hopefully it's going to realize, hey, I also need this JavaScript. I also need this CSS, and include it in this package that we've created, which can then be exported as a zip and installed in a WordPress website instead of just downloading the individual file, or instead of copying and pasting and things like that. So we'll wait for it to write its whole thing, and it actually looks decently good for now. Um, it is using a post, so that looks like it's forgetting about our Ajax, but it's including our style CSS and our JavaScript, so it'll still show you how it makes the multiple files. Um, but this is, I think, really the magnum opus of the platform. This is the thing that we set out to do, and it's already doing it, and it's just getting better and better and better, where it'll make these plugins. Eventually, it'll test these plugins automatically, and it will push them directly to your WordPress site to add these functionalities of new contact forms, or the customizations of modifying WooCommerce to do something that you want it to do, or X, Y, and Z. So I think that this is the initial version of a really powerful tool that creates plugins that, as I mentioned before, is an entire suite of testing and developing and so on and so forth. So we see that we don't want that, but we see that our other files are being included properly, and they actually are being generated. Form.php was already created when I was had that error, so I'm going to delete that. And the scripts and styles should completely work with that form, and we'll see if they're done writing or not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
okay,
something
so
that is,
go ahead.
like when you're messing around with like Chat GPT and even the day this was actually one of my questions is like handling multiple files, handling dependencies. Uh, people that don't know this stuff, they might come into this thinking, oh, I all I need is this one file and it's going to do everything. It's, man, this is going to be very difficult to like do this kind of development in like vanilla Chat GPT. Um, to the point where like I think it might exhaust some people. Say it's not for me, but they find a platform like CodeWP that can do it, and it's a major boon to your business.
Yeah, and this I think is exactly what I was saying when we focus on WordPress, that's our competitive advantage. We're able to like create complete WordPress plugins, and you can see that I think this one needs a bit of work, but obviously it's a lot better than ChatGPT in terms of adding all of the code that we need, and also like realizing, hey, I've included this JavaScript, I've included this CSS. I need to write CSS that's specific to this HTML markup. I need to write the scripts that are specific to our submission on the back end. So when we're actually writing WordPress code like this, our implementation of the multiple files and the packages of related code is really great because it creates that accurate code that does work together as a package that can be installed on a WordPress site as a plugin instead of in that conversational format. And I could even build probably a form plugin in chat mode where I say, all right, make me the form file to go and register the or create the form in the shortcode. All right, now make me the submission that occurs when the form is submitted. Okay, now make me the styles for the form. Now make me the JavaScript for the form. All of this, we can all take all of this and zip it into a plugin ourselves and add the plugin headers and all of that from a conversational interface like our conversational chat mode or code or chat GPT or whatever it might be. But in this situation, we kind of cut that step out and you now have a fully functional um, package, which can again be downloaded as a plugin, which I will just download that as a zip, and then you install it in a WordPress testing site and make sure it works and modify it to your needs conversationally again. Say, hey, I actually realized like I don't want the post submission, I want the Ajax submission only. And I'm assuming that the scripts will probably block the post submission and that's a fallback. But whatever it might be, I don't want that. I want this. And you can consistently iterate on your code using conversational language, and it understands the relationship between all these three files. So, again, I think this is the first step towards a platform that eventually you'll be able to just say, I need this button to become green, and it will figure out where the button is on the website. It'll figure out this is a WooCommerce button. It'll figure out, okay, we're going to write the CSS, we're going to write the PHP filter to change shop now to purchase now. We're going to test the code ourselves. We're going to test the code on a staging site. We're going to test it on your production site. We're going to install it. A minute later, the button's green. And that's a very basic example, but you can see how our packages and then the eventual connection to a WordPress website using projects, and then all of this kind of filters into a really powerful platform that we're working towards and already have in many cases. But we're working towards something that's pretty, I think, beneficial to everybody in WordPress, developers, creators, non techies alike.
Last sort of question here on like the technical side. How does one manage revisions? Do you get to, I call it revisions, but like iterations of the plugin? Like do you sync up to GitHub and you can create different branches of a plugin that you're working on? Are we not there yet? I'm just thinking of like how I use like Chat GPT. I actually write. I use Claude a lot to help me with writing, but sometimes I'll be writing something out, and I really just want Claude to change one paragraph that I wasn't really happy with, and it'll rewrite the whole thing, right? Like I don't want you to rewrite the whole thing. I just want that one section to be expanded or condensed. In code, you might say, okay, this version is a green button. Next version, I want multiple buttons, but I want to, just in case I want to roll back to that green button, how do you keep revisions in line, or is that not really a thing yet?
So it's not really a thing yet. Right now it's all conversational. It's all we're going to change it and it's actually just going to like write the code into this file as if a developer was like working with you to write the code into the file. We've had a lot of user requests because we're to the point now, and especially in the next couple of weeks with this huge backend refactor and speed boost and accuracy boost, we're to the point where people are genuinely using this tool every single day in their agencies, in their freelance work to create not just snippets, which is very good at snippets by itself. That core feature has always been good, but they are creating plugins for client sites and installing them in client sites. And when you professionally create plugins in this manner, the next logical thing is, hey, I need to like roll back to some other version. I need to roll back to some other version. So there's definitely the need for it. And there's definitely work being done on our end to allow for these kind of revisions as well as the history trail of okay, this conversational input led to this edit on the code, let's click this history button and go back to that specific code version. So we're working on it. It's difficult to try to figure out how it slots into our general vision of creating this package, testing this package, and then installing it on the WordPress site using the AI. So we're trying to figure out how best to do that. It's interesting because for us, from the technical side of things, the platform itself actually uses Git in the back end to manage all of the file changes. So we have all these file changes accessible. We're just figuring out how best to make it possible for users to jump back and forth and maintain their understanding of the conversation because we are a very conversational based tool and will continue to be. And also just make it easy for people. The platform already, I think, needs a lot of UI updates because it is a little complex already. And what we're trying to do is make it even more complex, but make it simpler to use and more conversational. So we're going to really just work on how best to implement revisions and a lot of other updates that make it more and more professional, make it more and more a tool that you can use every day in your general workflow.
James LePage, CodeWP. This is probably one of the most efficient, jam-packed hours I've ever produced. we went from the global scale of AI and its impact on humanity to checking out your platform, CodeWP.ai, where you can build WordPress websites or WordPress plugins and code snippets and all that fun stuff. CodeWP.ai. It's up on the screen. Simple pricing. You can start for free for $0 and go up to that pro plan for a mere $18 a month if billed annually. Fantastic tool, my friend. This is exciting stuff. I wish you and the team all the best.
Thank you.
CodeWP.ai, best place for folks to go, right?
Yeah, CodeWP.ai is a really good starting point. You should also check out my Twitter. I've been a bit more active, or not Twitter anymore. You should check out my X, James W. LePage. I've been a bit more active specific to WordPress and AI. I think that, as Matt has said 2 years in a row, AI is the thing that's going to impact our industry. We're trying to lead the charge there in terms of pushing everything forwards with AI, and I'm talking a lot about that on my personal X, Twitter, whatever it may be called. I also just want to give a humongous shout out to the team behind CodeWP. Um, Without the team, this product wouldn't exist. And all of the incredible features that are coming in the next couple of months wouldn't exist either. So, really proud of what we've already built. As a decently small team, this is a crazy product. It's a crazy vision, and we are implementing on it. So, very proud of the team, and I'm really excited. Hopefully, I can jump back on this show in maybe 4 to 6 months, and really excited to show you what we're working on because there are a couple of things that I think when we get it right, they will be revolutionary in WordPress. So keep posted.
Thanks a lot, James. Everybody else watching the live stream, thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget to go to the WPminute.com/subscribe to join the mailing list. It's the number one way to stay connected. We have weekly podcast episodes like the WP Minute Plus and the WP Minute, which is your favorite 5 minutes of WordPress news. Every week, support the show by going to the WPminute.com/support. You can join our Slack membership for as little as $5 or be an annual member to support the show for $79 a year. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.